Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's installment of IF and Love Cinema. And today we're talking about George A. Romero's 1973 cult classic, The Crazies. You know, George A. Romero is a filmmaker who I've admired for a very long time on two fronts. One, as just like an indie filmmaker legend. This guy is known for squeezing. He manages. His movies don't cost a lot of money, but every single cent of that budget is on screen. He is a director who often works with a lot of unknowns, with a lot of inexperienced crew and stuff like that, and is still able to like give all his movies this large, overarching scope and all this sense of excitement. I mean, there's helicopters. This is the second '70s George A. Romero movie that I've seen where he just has helicopters. It just and they're directed and they're not like I mean, there's definitely a lot of stock footage that is edited into this movie, but the helicopters are not among those. I admire the shit out of George Romero for his ability to do all this, and it is exciting to see him be able to do these great, sweeping, often political, deeply satirical, and deeply critical movies, all on a low budget. And on the other level for me, like I love that homespun, low budget, like scrappy indie guerrilla filmmaker vibe. Like it's so punk rock. Like when you see this movie, like his movies skirt the edge of suspension of disbelief, because when you see his movies you see that low budget, you totally see that low budget, but you know what, you see every single cent of that low budget on the fucking screen, and that is super fucking cool. Let's talk about the Crazies specifically, actually. So the Crazies, in typical George A. Romero fashion, stars mainly a lot of unknowns. And I was watching with Lindsay, and at some point, Lindsay just says, "God, men were so ugly in the '70s," and all I could think was, no, men are still that ugly. Men are still hideous. It's just there aren't a lot of George A. Romeros out there who are willing to put hideous men on the screen. But he's willing to do that, and that whatever you want to say about that, that's what men look like. That's what dudes look like. So his movies definitely feel like they take place like in my backyard. And that definitely adds to that vibe that he's going for. I don't think that's at all unintentional here. And this movie, what I loved about it the most is that it sort of reminded me of a mix of 28 Weeks Later, or 28 Days Later, and Sidney Lumet's Failsafe, right? I think the obvious comparisons to make is that, The Crazies and 28 Days Later are not zombie movies, where in every single way they're zombie movies, but they find some reason to just like say they're not zombies. And in 28 Days Later, of course, it's the rage virus, nobody's undead or anything. And the same thing here. There's just this mysterious biological weapon that turns everybody into raging gun-toting maniacs, into a lot of mass shooters, essentially. Sadly, that is a sad inevitable outcome of it. I'm sure that played a lot different back in the day, but that's what those movies about. It's a zombie movie where the zombies aren't biting people, they're shooting at everyone. And it's also this movie about like a small town who is fighting against the military, and it was trying to establish martial law, and you're seeing these small town people like pushing back against that. So it has that sort of punk rock Americana, like small town, we're all banding together vibe, which is great. But it contrasts that. This is where the sort of failsafe and even the a low key Doctor Strangelove comparisons come in, because it contrasts the drama of what's going on in the streets with the sort of military action. And what's so great about it is that this movie, the biggest enemy of this movie is bureaucracy, and it's a lack of resources. I turned to Lindsay and I said this, and she looked at me like, "Come on, Ed, I think you're reaching a little bit here." But I feel safe in saying this because this is George Romero we're talking about. This guy is unapologetically political. And ham fisted as he may be, and unapologetically ham fisted as he may be, he definitely puts his political ideology and messages into his movies, and he makes no apologies about that. You know? In this movie, I mean, let's talk about the parallel right here, right? The American government does something that makes people behave in a way that is socially unacceptable, in a way that is violent, right? But it's the government's fault that this happened. So the government created a situation that made everybody go fucking crazy, and the government is now going around and unapolog and like without any prejudice, establishing martial law and just killing citizens who they suspect of being sick. And their biggest enemy is not, the quote unquote sick people. It's their inability to set their infrastructure up. It's Nazi Germany. It's literally like it's in a lot of weird ways. It carries that vibe and shit. And I definitely don't think that's unintentional. I mean, you can say that I'm overreaching, but again, this is George Romero we're talking about. If you know, you know. I think that's in there, and I don't think that's an accident. But what I really appreciated about this movie, what really sets it apart from all the other George A. Romero movies that I've seen and other movies of this part, is that it's very systemic, right? Like this is a movie that unfolds with three basic plot lines. One is the sort of street level stuff where we follow these survivors who are just trying to survive. One is the scientific angle, and one is the military angle, and you're seeing all these three aspects, affect each other. But what I love is that like the military and the scientific angle of the movie, that's where the sort of intellectual aspect of it is, because that's where a lot of discussion of like, oh, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And et cetera, and et cetera, and et cetera. All this stuff. Um, you know, yeah, that's where a lot of that conversation is. And I mean, there's even that the scientist character reminds me of Walter Matthau's like annoying like intellectual loudmouth. Like it's so the parallels between this movie and specifically Failsafe are so like direct that I don't think it's unintentional either. But much like Failsafe, I love that this sort of building tension and dread as this sort of thing gets worse and worse and gets out of their hands. I really enjoyed that journey, and I really enjoyed spending time with the two buddies and the friends that are at the center of this, and their significant others. And there's a lot. There's some twisted stuff in this too. Let's be real about that. There's one plot line that takes a specifically twisted turn towards the end, but it fits. And this is an entertaining ass movie. Like if you're down for a George Romero flavored monster movie that is just George Romero all the way. I highly recommend this one. I really love this one. Guess take a while. Guess how I saw this one. I bought this on the Arrow Easter Carnage sale, and I'm sure you guys are sick and tired of me saying this by now. But Arrow just keeps knocking it out of the park with these transfers because this movie looks amazing. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm planning on buying the Martin 4K, on top of a couple of more Mexican movies and stuff. So, yeah, be ready for that. That's gonna be all for today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you've seen the Crazies or you've seen the remake and all that. I might check that out for this for at some point in the future. Now that I've seen the original now, so yeah, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Comment below. Till next time, peace.